The story of the other wise man follows the travels of Artaban, the fourth wise man and a magi who has read in the stars the coming of one who shall be born the King of the Jews. Part 1. The story begins with Artaban setting out on a pilgrimage through the desert alone, traveling first to Jerusalem and then on to Bethlehem. He bore with him 3 precious jewels to offer as a gift to the newborn. This mysterious wise man spends 33 years searching for the king until at last they meet. Artaban was set to meet up with the caravan, but came upon a Hebrew who was stricken from malnutrition and exposure. The Magi knew it would take some time to heal this man. It was time he did not have, but he relented and made a concoction to heal him. The next day, the man woke and was on his way to health, and Artaban was ready to take his leave. But before he took off, the Hebrew said to him, "You will find the newborn King of the Jews in Bethlehem." Artaban made his way to the place of meeting, but found that the caravan had already departed. He debated on what to do next, for the journey was both far and dangerous. In the end, the Magi resolved to honor the newborn king and purchased a train of camel and loaded up on provisions. Unfortunately, this cost him the blue sapphire. Part 2. Arriving many months later to the town of Bethlehem, he found a woman with child and inquired about the babe. She told him that the wise men arrived 3 days earlier, bearing wondrous gifts to Mary and Joseph's infant. But the family fled to Egypt, and the kings returned to their own country. Suddenly, there was a commotion in the square, and amid the shouting and clanging of swords, they heard, "Herod's soldiers are coming to kill our children." The woman clung close to her child, trying to keep him quiet, and Artaban stood in the doorway as the swordsman approached. "Stand aside," the officer growled, but Artaban did not move. As the captain walked towards him, the Magi held out a most beautiful red ruby which glowed in the moonlight. Greed filled the eyes of the officer, and as he held it in his hands, he yelled, "Move along," to his troop, and they marched to the next house. The young mother said thank you, and Artaban departed the town. Now he had only the luminous pearl in his belongings to offer the King of the Jews. Part 3. Many years and long miles later, Artaban was in Jerusalem for the Passover and heard in the streets that the Romans were going to crucify the King of the Jews. He thought to himself that maybe this was the one he had sought all these years and headed to Golgotha. On his way there, he heard a young woman screaming as she was dragged by the slavers, and she cried pitifully, "Save me, I am being sold to pay for my father's debts." Artaban heard her and went to the slave master and presented him with a large luminescent pearl, saying, "I will ransom her." The trader took the pearl into his hands and let the girl go without a thought. As the other Magi reached Golgotha, he thought to himself, "I am years late and have nothing to offer the King of the Jews whom I have been seeking." Then the earth shook and the skies darkened as the soldiers at the top of the hill scrambled away, And then the fourth magi heard a voice. "What are you seeking?" And Artaban replied, 30 years ago, I followed a star that I might pay homage to the newborn king of the Jews, but I've spent all the treasure I was going to give him. The voice replied, Amen, amen, I say to you. Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers, you did for me. A calm radiance of wonder and joy lighted the pale face of Artaban like the first ray of dawn on a snowy mountain peak. A long breath of relief exhaled gently from his lips. His journey was ended, his treasures accepted. The otherwise man had found